Are you a manual therapist ready to expand your clinical reach and deepen your effectiveness? Upledger craniosacral therapy addresses deep restrictions, supports neurological and fascial systems, and enhances whole body function by working with the body's natural healing processes. For over 40 years, Upledger Institute International has led the field of craniosacral therapy, offering an approach that integrates seamlessly into any manual therapy practice and supports common to complex and chronic conditions. Find a class near you at upledger.com/courses or call 800-233-5880 extension 2 and begin your craniosacral therapy training for as little as $100 a month. At Heights Retreats, massage therapists build stable and meaningful careers rooted in wellness and care. A place where therapists are dedicated to delivering exceptional care to the guests, not to filling their schedule. Heights Retreats care deeply about their therapists, our profession, and wellness itself. Grow with Heights as they evolve into a wellness-driven future. Visit heightswellnessretreat.com for more information.
Hi there, ABMP listeners. I'm Angie Paris, licensed massage therapist, yoga instructor, lifestyle coach, and a certified instructor of meditation and Ayurveda. I'm also the director of strategic partnerships for ABMP. And you're listening to the ABMP Podcast, a podcast that speaks uniquely to the massage and bodywork community. Today, I have here with me former NFL running back Ricky Williams. Ricky's football career began at the University of Texas at Austin, where he was named a two-time All-American, winning the 1998 Heisman Trophy and setting numerous NCAA records. Shortly after, he was drafted by the New Orleans Saints and continued an illustrious football career, known as one of the most electric running backs of the century. Most notably, he played with the Miami Dolphins for the span of 7 seasons. He finished his career with over 10,000 rushing yards and 74 touchdowns, and then retired in 2011 after playing his final season with the Baltimore Ravens. Ricky was inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame in 2015. During Ricky's time with the Miami Dolphins, he faced 2 suspensions due to the NFL's strict marijuana policy. This marked a time in his career where he explored alternatives to healing as he navigated his way through head trauma. This journey eventually led him to the Upledger Institute, where he wanted to learn everything he could about craniosacral therapy and went on to conduct a concussion pilot study and intensive workshops for football players with Upledger. In 2018, he co-founded Real Wellness, an alternative health brand, after studying Ayurvedic and traditional Chinese medicine. This, along with his personal exploration of cannabis, paved the way for the launch of Heisman in 2021 to empower professional and everyday athletes as well as sports enthusiasts alike through cannabis. He brings a deep knowledge of herbs, sports, and wellness to the brand. Ricky has devoted his personal life and professional career to inspiring greatness, whether in himself, his teammates, or those around him. And I couldn't be more thrilled, humbled, and honored to sit with him here today. Welcome, Ricky.
Well, thank you.
Quite a while there. We kind of went into your whole history there. But when we talk about your healing journey, talk to us a little bit about what started that. What propelled you to go on to a healing journey?
Well, I guess life. I've had a lot of experience with healing, and I think what healing means is wholeness. And I think that's something that we grow into, but we grow through ups and downs, easy times, difficult times. So I guess if I had to put a date, I would say 1998, when I had a bad quad strain against UCLA. And you shared the story. I won the Heisman Trophy, broke all the records in 1998. And I didn't think it was going to happen because I got hurt really early in the season and I didn't know what to do. And so I tried to push through it, but had a really bad game. I was starting to become afraid because I came back from my senior year to win the Heisman Trophy and to break the records. And if I was hurt, I wasn't going to be able to do it. So I went to the head coach and I said, "Can you help me?" And he asked around a little bit, and he found that the Texas athletic department had a massage therapist who worked on some of the female athletes. And so after practice every day, I would come in and Lori would come and she spent about 45 minutes working on my leg. And the next 2 games, I had back-to-back 300-yard rushing games. So, that was the first time. And I grew up in the church. And so we had, healing by putting the hands on. But this was the first time in my lived experience where I saw the value of another person who had some sort of skill set that had the ability to help me feel better and perform better. And I kind of became obsessed with that because performance was everything that I did. So anything that could assist me in being better helped me to perform. So healing as an athlete has a very poignant application because it's our livelihood, right? If we're not healthy, if we're not whole, then we don't have the ability really to be successful. And as an athlete, that defeats the purpose. And I became fascinated with healing of the body. And it's not too much of a jump when we go through emotional pain of losing my reputation, something that I kind of spent my whole life building as a professional athlete, and then to fail a drug test. Because when I was growing up, the one thing that they said is don't throw it away for drugs. And there I was throwing it away for drugs. So that hurt, and so that was a kind of a different kind of healing journey. And the beauty of it is it was the third up-ledger class that I took, and it was somato-emotional release. And so for me, it was the first time, and I'd studied yoga and we talked about it. And sometimes someone is in a posture and an emotional thing will come up. But when you spend 4 days in a classroom and learning about the connection between the body and trauma, and you see from putting your hands on someone and the demonstrations in the class, you see how real it is. Wow. I was hooked. I was hooked after that because, I think part of wholeness, and this better than anyone, part of wholeness is the connection between the mind or the emotions and the body. And for me, I came into a way to actually have a positive effect on that intersection.
Oh, that's so beautiful. I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, we store emotions. Our issues are in our tissues. That's one of the sayings that we have. And to only address one aspect of ourselves, I love your word wholeness, because that we are whole beings. We're not just a leg that got injured. We're not just some other injury, that we're experiencing and trying to navigate through. There's oftentimes when there's a trauma, there's an emotion. There was something else that was going on at that time too. And so to really pull back all of those layers and to really heal fully, you have to address all of those things too.
This reminds me, I did several intensives, and my favorite intensive I did right before the 2009 football season. And I had this theory that, when people get hurt, they have some kind of trauma, that they can go see a craniosacral therapist or a manual therapist and they can feel better. But as an athlete, I thought, okay, there's feeling better, but what about performance enhancement? How do I perform better? And I thought, if I go in a quote unquote healthy state in preparation for the season, and I go through 5 days of Bodywork, an intensive craniosacral program, that I will perform better. And that season, I was the MVP of the Miami Dolphins as a second string, as a backup running back. So this connection between how we show up in the world, and football is just one example because it's what I did, but each of us show up as body workers, as parents, as all the things we do. We show up with our bodies and we show up with our feelings and our emotions. And I remember during this intensive, I got the perspective of my body. because as a football player, part of what we have to learn to do is shut off our awareness of our body so that we can push through the pain and keep on going. But in the session, in the intensive, I got a sense of my body doesn't like that. And it didn't mean stop playing football, but it did mean just have more consideration for what I'm putting my body through. And I think it was such a useful insight, and it allowed me to walk away from the game with my body still intact because I started to listen to it.
That is interesting that here you are using your body to do the work, and yet there's a somewhat almost like detachment from it in order for you to use it like an instrument as you need it to be used. And then at the same time, you got to keep your instrument tuned up and in good working condition in order for it to continue to operate. That's really an interesting perspective. I kind of want to get into a little bit about concussion work, right? And kind of what craniosacral work can do and how it can assist and support all of that healing. What does it feel like being in your nervous system when it's operating optimally? And then what does it feel like when you've experienced a concussion? What are the differences? What does that feel like to experience that?
This comes back to what we were just talking about. Part of being a football player, at least from my perspective, is you play through all of those things. So our training isn't really to be sensitive to what it feels like. It's to be not sensitive so that we can execute on what we were trained to do. And so from a football person's perspective, the issue with the concussion is not really about our body. It's, I need to get back out on the field and I need to be able to perform well. So my body's got to get better as fast as it possibly can.
So for those of anybody who's experienced craniosacral work, it's a little bit, it's more subtle, it's more gentle. I mean, to your point, you're really having to tune in to the energy of your body, just kind of the vibration of it. In your opinion, or just from your perspective, tell us what that feels like compared to kind of like the healing therapies that are no pain, no gain kind of a thing, as opposed to something very subtle.
It is very subtle, because one of the insights that I got from doing this work and studying it is most of the traumas or the difficult things that we've experienced were impacts. And a lot of times they came from something else. And a lot of times, especially the emotional ones, they come from someone else. So there's something that's a necessary ingredient to allow the healing process to unfold is a certain kind of honor, respect, and gentleness for the being. And so the skill or the art in craniosacral therapy, the first is really the ability to listen, to really tune in and to listen to who's here or to what's here. And that certain kind of listening is like if you're in the forest and you can get really still, then the animals will start to come out. So to me, a skillful craniosacral therapist has this kind of listening ability where they don't have to go and find the pain. They sit and allow the wound or the pain to arise in a field where it feels safe. Even one of the tools that we learn is unwinding, and it's honoring the process of that. The trauma came through a certain way, and to allow the natural unwinding or unfolding to allow it to release. And oftentimes it's fascinating when you're working on someone's tissue, you can almost feel their mind connecting to and looping through the memory. And then you can feel when they have that opening or that epiphany because you feel the tissue soften and return to normal. So it really is a matter of sensitivity. And so someone like me who spent a lot of years meditating, it doesn't feel subtle at all. But for someone who's more used to more physical work, the first thing is someone's touching me and I don't feel anything, right? That's a bit of an adjustment. And sometimes the first couple of sessions, they'll just fall asleep. But they'll get to a certain point where they'll say, I felt energy run up and down my leg, or I felt this, or I had this memory, or I had this thought. And to me, especially for football players, right, that's part of the process, is to become more aware of what is going on here. And the other thing that for me that helps sum up really simply what we're doing in craniosacral therapy, because it comes from osteopathy, right? It's born out of osteopathy. And really, we're tuning into the person and we're feeling, where is their movement? Where is their rhythm? And where does it feel like things are stuck? And we hold the place where the things might be stuck and we allow it to unfold and allow movement to come back. Because where there's movement, there's life.
Let's take a short break to hear a word from our sponsors. Elevate your bodywork career with Anatomy Train's Structural Integration Certification, ATSI. Discover how to map the pattern and shape the change through inspiring lectures, hands-on body reading, and practical techniques you can use in your practice right away. Join us for ATSI Maine 2026 to 2027, where Tom Myers will personally kick off this transformative professional training. Learn more at anatomytrains.com/ATSI. Let's get back to our conversation.
So you talk about you had an injury in college. When was the first time that you started really diving deep into all of these different healing modalities?
So it started off with yoga, because I think yoga is especially the way my teacher taught it, is a self-healing modality. And it's a self-healing modality. And then I played a year of football up in Toronto in Canada, and we had the first female head athletic director in all of professional football, Erin. And one day I walked into the training room, and the three guys were laying on the training bench, and the three trainers had their hands underneath their heads, holding their heads. And I could feel like the meditation vibe, the energy that was really relaxed in there. And I said, "What are you guys doing?" I said, "That looks cool. I want some of that." And they explained to me, "Oh, it's called craniosacral therapy." And I said, "I never heard of it." And I said, "Can I try?" And so I laid down, and Erin put her hand underneath my head, and I went into that meditative state. And I came out, and I was like, wow, it felt really cool. It felt really good. And a week later, ended up breaking my arm. So I was out for a couple of weeks. And Erin saw that I was interested in it, and she said, one of my professors is an osteopath, and he's taken up ledger courses. You should go see him since you have some time off. Gus. I love Gus. So I drove down to meet Gus, and, I've seen hundreds of doctors as a professional athlete. And we sat down, and Gus and I talked for 35 minutes. That was the first time I ever went to see a doctor where they actually were curious about me. And then he said, "All right, now get on the table." And he started at my feet, and I walked, and he worked his way over the next hour up to my head. And I was super relaxed. So much so, I didn't know what was going on, but I said, I'm going to come back. I'm going to come back. So I kept coming back for the next 6 weeks. And then it was time for me my arm healed, and it was time for me to play. And I'm the kind of player where I have to practice. I have to get a lot of reps to get into the flow. But, I had been away for so long. So I asked the coach, I only practiced for 3 days. I asked the coach if I could take a couple snaps in the game. And he said, sure. But I expected my timing to be way off and everything to be, I got like maybe 7 carries, and I played extremely well. I was in the zone almost instantaneously. And to me, I thought, that's strange. That's not normal. And that next week when I went to see Gus, I told him the story, and he started laughing. He started laughing. He said, I think you should take more of an interest in craniosacral. And he said, Upledger teaches courses all around the world. You should find one and take one. And synchronicity would have it that in Toronto, a week after the season was over, Upledger was coming to Toronto. And one of the trainers who I was really close with had enrolled to take the class. So I had someone to take the class with, and I was ready for it. And I remember the first time is in the class, one of the first skills we learn is to listen for the craniosacral rhythm. And I remember putting my hands on my partner's head, and I could feel something. And I had this feeling of, I've been here before. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. It was something. And after that, I was off. Yeah. There was Cranial 2 was a couple months later in San Francisco. A couple months later in May was somato-emotional release. Advanced was that next summer. I was all in. And to the point where I was like, I could tell this was going to be part of what I'm going to do with my life. And while I was playing football in the off season, I went to massage therapy school to get my license touch so that I could actually do this work. Yeah, I guess being a football player and seeing the effect of injuries and going through psychological, emotional, mental health things and seeing while I was going through the most intense difficulties in my life, I was getting 4 days of body work at each of these classes. And it so helped me navigate the most difficult time of my life. And it gave me purpose. So I see how much it can help people and how simple it is because all you need are your hands and caring and the kind of difference you can make in someone's life. I'm all in.
Oh, man. You sound kindred spirit. You are going to be among kindred spirits here of all of our listeners because I think that is how most of us enter the profession. There's some heartfelt reason. There's some shift that you experienced yourself that it's like, I want more. I want to know. And how many more people can I help with all of this? Tell us a little bit more of I know this was just like your gateway coming into the healing profession. Where else did you go with all of this? Because I know you've done a whole lot more.
I've done, there's an energy healing system called pranic healing. But honestly, I found all the different modalities, everything else, it's really a complement to the hand, to listening to the tissues with the hands. And I've taken several visceral manipulation. Oh, that's mind blowing, but just the capacity of what the hands can pick up and what they can convey. That's really been the essence of it all. And also, it's funny, certain things I learned from my teachers in craniosacral therapy apply to life. Right? Just really being able to listen and follow. And I don't know, there's something about this work when you're doing it that it makes you a better person. Because all of the instructors, and I don't know them deeply personally, but all the instructors with Upledger that I've interacted with, they have, at least when they're teaching, they have kind of a saintly quality to them, And I think when you dedicate your life to holding space for people and seeing people move through things, I think it helps you believe in the good in the world.
For somebody who's new starting out, what advice would you give them? How did you work on developing your craft and truly listening?
Curiosity. I think so much in bodywork, and this is my cranial training, so much in bodywork, it's about what we have to do to the tissues. And I think our skill, but sometimes it's an assumption of what we think is going on and the body knows. So the ability to listen, for the hands to listen what the body needs, and then we can move and use our different techniques and skills to be able to be there for a person. So I think practice too, curiosity and practice. When I first started, because bodywork was new to me, it was like, especially as a big, tough football player, but anyone that I felt comfortable with, I always had my massage table in the back, and anyone who was comfortable, put my hands on, listen to the rhythm. So practice.
So you were actually practicing bodywork while you were a pro athlete.
Oh,
yeah.
Sure was.
Wow.
Yeah. The person I practiced on the most was myself. I had a whole, and I think this is why I was able to play so long at a high level. I had a whole routine the night before the game where I'd work on myself. I'd start at my head and work all the way down my body. In the morning before practice or sitting in meetings, I was unwinding my knees, getting myself ready.
So craniosacral, you can even practice on yourself then.
Oh, yes, sure can.
My perception of what you're saying too, when you're listening and receiving the information, it's more of a feeling or a felt experience of it too,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well said. Well said. Yeah. It's on a feeling level because when we're tuning into the cranial rhythm, right, we're tuning into fluid. And so, and if we think when we're in that kind of half awake, half dreamy state, things, right, we have more access to the emotions, to how we feel, how we really feel about things. And wait, one of my cranial teachers, Hugh, it is a meditation. When you're sitting and you're listening, you have to still all of your stuff, what you think the bird, you got to get all your stuff still and out of the way to truly be present and listen. And often, at least in this work, the true healing, it really does start with the listening because most people don't listen to themselves and we're not really good at really listening to other people. So when someone is taking the time and all of their focus and energy is about listening to your neck right? Or your occiput or your heart and really listening and allowing it to express and being a witness of that, oh man,
Well,
it's
and some
cool.
of what you're saying too is just giving the client the opportunity to finally be seen, to finally be heard, to finally be validated. I mean, that's kind of even a first step toward healing is just even having that acknowledgement, whether it's somebody else acknowledging it for you or giving you permission to even step into that space of acknowledging it too. Well, okay, I'm going to back up here a little bit. I know from when we wrote an article in our September-October 2019 issue, as our CBD issue, our editor, Carrie Osborne, did a piece with you. She interviewed you. And we have a beautiful video that you shared with us, too, of some work that you did with Upledger on concussion. It was a pilot study. So talk to us about that. Is that work that you still do? Talk to us
Yeah,
about that. Yeah.
I mean, I feel like that's, that's my life's work, that I'll feel if at the end of my life, if craniosacral and football are not like connected in some meaningful, powerful way, I'll feel like I failed. Just because I've seen so many of my teammates, so many of my peers having a really difficult time physically, mentally, and I know that craniosacral could have helped them and can still help them. It's always going to be in my mind because I feel, and I think you go through certain life experiences for a reason. And if I track my life experiences, it's not an accident, that I played football and then I found craniosacral therapy. And so I feel like that's definitely part of my life's work.
How often do you practice now? How many clients a week do you work on?
On a busy week, I'll see 4 clients.
Well, and you've got all these other enterprises you got going on here too, right?
Yeah, yeah. Oh my goodness, I stay busy. My main gig is well, I have so many main gigs, but I'm a professional astrologer, and I taught myself to write code, and I created an astrology app. And I think this is a whole nother separate passion of mine. But there's a type of astrology called medical astrology, and it's astrology applied to the body. And I think body workers, because they spend so much time interacting with bodies, oh man, I think they have so much to offer medical astrology. So, I hope one day to train body workers on the basics of how to understand the body from an astrological perspective.
And you've been to the Himalayas, you've learned Chinese medicine.
I know. All these adventures. It's funny. I'm working on my memoir right now, and I, going back and telling the story, I'm starting to see all of the connections, and it's the timing of this interview, this podcast is interesting because talking about the most challenging times in my life, but I have to smile as I'm telling those stories and talk about the Upledger classes and the things that I was learning going through those processes. And it's cool that it's in my real life story that it's a powerfully meaningful chapter. And I couldn't be where I am today or having this conversation if it wasn't for those experiences. And I get emotional. I get emotional every time I talk about it and I've become really close to the Upledger family, literally. And I just think the work that they're doing, I can say, honestly, it saved my life. And it has the potential to help so many people, so many people.
What would be one of your most profound experiences in working with a client that really touched you?
A client had a memory or a vision of, and this client had a lot of difficulty with their father. And we started working on her chest, and she had a memory of when she was a kid, and she had a really bad asthma attack and a bad infection, and they wouldn't allow her parents to come see her, and it's like really traumatized her. And she had issues with her father, and as we were working together, she had an image of her father when he was a child, and she was able to connect to his experiences and connect to how he got to become the way he was. And I saw afterwards how it drastically changed her relationship, not only with her father, but with her children. And that from, working on someone's clavicle, it's mind blowing.
Well, Ricky, is there anything else that you would love for our listeners to know, to be inspired by, that they could put into their practice? I mean, here's what I'm learning from you today. Listen, be curious, keep learning.
Yeah. Well, if you hadn't had your training, then listening and being curious wouldn't be as helpful. But because you do have training, right, the curiosity and the listening allows you to know how to best apply the training to each unique individual.
Well, I have a team here who's always like trying to pull back the reins on me too, because I'm like, okay, I go to Thailand, I go learn Thai massage, I go to Bali, I'm going to be a yoga instructor. We did a podcast with somebody who did dolphin craniosacral work. I'm like, okay, cool, sign me up. Or we got to learn this too, So
yeah, that was amazing. The dolphins were amazing. That if anyone has the opportunity to have that experience, you got to take it.
So you've had the experience?
I sure have.
Tell me about it.
Yeah. Well, it's beautiful because we do cranial outside of the water, but when we spend a couple of hours with the dolphins, and you get into the tank and the dolphins come in, and you're floating in the water and there's a therapist holding you and doing some work, but the dolphins come in. And for me, at one point, a dolphin was right behind my head for about 4 minutes, and then went up and got right along my side. And to have the experience of their contribution, man, it was powerful.
Well, where can our listeners learn more about you, Ricky?
So my website is rickywilliams.life. And to learn more about my astrology app, the name of the app is Lila, Lila, and the website is lilaverse.app. And an Instagram @Williams. And yeah, that's me.
We'll have more of this information in our episode show notes for you as well. Information for Upledger, this pilot study that we were talking about, all the other ways to connect with Ricky. It has been such an honor, such a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us on our humble little podcast here to talk about bodywork and all of the profound healing. And I think every time I have one of these conversations, I just walk away reminding myself that the work we do really matters, and it really re-inspires me too, because I've been in this profession for over 20 years, and you can go through those periods of burnout and all of that, and we need people like you to keep lifting us up and reminding us how important this work is, especially now. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Precision Neuromuscular Therapy has been teaching high-quality seminars for over 20 years across the country. Founded by Doug Nelson, PNMT uses problem-solving skills and precise treatment options to get powerful results for your clients. PNMT seminars focus on honing your assessment and palpation skills to precisely target the source of your client's pain while understanding the why behind the what. Meet us in a hands-on seminar or online in the PNMT portal and let us join you on your learning journey. Learn more at pnmt.org.